Today's message from Reverend Christian Sorensen was recorded April 17th, 2016, and it's titled Earth, My Grandkid's Legacy. Subtitled, What Are You Doing to Help Save the Planet? And what kind of difference do you want to make? Also wanted to let you know that there are many, many links in the show notes, which can be found at joyouspodcast.com.
Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home, 'cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome here.
All right, so I love Earth Day messages because what it does for me is it takes me back to looking at all the information in regards to Earth Day and all the facts and statistics, and I never really know what's going to come out of my mouth because there's so much swirling in my head up here. But really what I wanted to do this year was not so much go on the negative side of things, though, these drastic images do provoke responsiveness, which is why they're put in our faces so much, is so we can come out of our complacency or our apathy and recognize, there's an issue that is going on. But this year I thought, I'd go a little gentler approach. And so what came through my mind was the line that we often hear, whether it's from the indigenous people, but about, what would you say to your grandchild when they ask you, what did you do to help save the planet? Wow. That kind of makes one think. The Native Americans, the First Nation, they talk about thinking about the ramifications 7 generations out for what it is that you're doing. And so there was this video clip, couple minutes, these couple young brothers singing. I thought I'd share with you, since I'm talking about kids and grandkids, the legacy we leave our kids. They're taking it in their own hands because I don't know if they're trusting us.
We are the youth and we have come to shine the light, to show you the way you're living just ain't right. It's endangering the future that you will leave for all living things and for human beings. We're on the brink of ecological disaster. What you do today will determine our future. All generations are counting on you to find yourself and change the things that you do. It's time to be the change, stand for what you know is right. It's time to be the change and build a world of light. It's time to be the change and unite as one. It's time to be the change and that means everyone. You gotta feel the change to live the change. You gotta share the change to spread the change. You gotta give the change to be the change. So be the change, so be the change. Real change starts from deep down inside. Take a look at yourself, we are not divided. Listen to your heart and see what is real. The oneness of the earth is what you will feel. Breathe in deep and let beliefs go. Be the truth, cause you know you reap what you sow. It's society's bond that have captured your fall. Open your heart and hear our generation's call. It's time to be the change, stand for what you know is right. It's time to be the change and build a world of light. It's time to be the change and unite as one. It's time to be the change and that means everyone. You gotta feel the change to live the change. You gotta share the change to spread the change. You gotta give the change to be the change. So be the change, so be the change. Don't let society's ways drive you no more. Break down the lock and open a different door. Step out of the cage from where you have been caught. Remember the truth that you have forgot. We become the change that we want to see. A world's gonna be the way we want it to be. We are all connected by the same thread. What we do to each other, we do to the web. It's time to be the change, stand for what you know is right. It's time to be the change and build a world of light. It's time to be the change and unite as one. It's time to be the change that means everyone. You gotta feel the change to live the change. You gotta share the change to spread the change. You gotta give the change to be the change. So be the change, so be the change. Who is the change? We are the change. Who brings the change? We bring the change. Who is the change? We are the change. Who brings the change? We bring the change. Who is the change? We are the change. Who brings the change? We bring the change. Who is the change?
And so I want you to know those two young brothers are choosing to be the change. You may say they're little, and what can they do? They're taking our government to the courts to say, what are you doing to our environment? You are ruining and decimating our future here on the planet. You don't have any right to do that. And so these kids are being the change. You got these little guys just saying, hey, if you adults aren't going to take care of it, we need to call the question for us to take a look at it. And so what I want us to recognize is there is change that's going on our planet right now. There is this emergence that is taking place, a renaissance, if you would, of the mystical teachings that are profound. And it is just amazing, the correlation by how the planet is calling for its attention or being brought back into balance, and the mystical rising through the wonderful accessibility that is now brought to us through the technology, through the books and through the reading, whether it is, the ecstatic kind of blood-soaked Christianity, mysticism, if you want that, or if you want a little bit more somber, sober Buddhism that has you contemplating, but if it's missing the impersonal divinity aspect of things, you could always go into the fiery waters of Hinduism and that devotional approach, or you can go for the indigenous approach of the Hopis, or of the Aborigines of Australia, or the Taoists, or the Confucius, or the depths of the Kabbalah, or the wonderful, just passionate expression of the Sufism, which is the mystical side of the Islam. And if the religious approach doesn't excite you, you can go with the body approach, whether it's through meditation or yoga or Reiki, or the list goes on. I want you to get there is something, a renaissance of a connectedness, of a oneness with life that's taking place on our planet. And what it is inviting me or us to do is to come into alignment with a higher perspective and observation, say, what are you doing here? Maybe it has gotten to the point where something needs to change. Or as Naomi Klein in her book says, everything has got to change. We're doing a documentary in a couple weeks from her, everything has got to change. Something or everything has got to change for us to continue. But what I want us to get, things are changing. Yes. People are thinking, oh, this is terrible. It's the end of the world. There's nothing I can do. Don't tell those little kids there's nothing you can do. They're taking on the biggies. There are things we can do. Paul Hawken, he wrote a book called Blessed Unrest. And what he did is he identified different groups around the planet that are getting socially active to make a difference in the world, to make a difference in people's lives, to make a difference on the planet. And he started to list them. And you may have seen this list because it's been, or some of the list, because it's been going around for some time and at conferences on global change and things like that. They'll start running the list at the beginning of the conference, and it will name the nonprofit, the organization. And there are between 1 and 2 million organizations on this list that are going on the planet right now. And if you were to watch the whole list, it takes days or even weeks to go through 1 million, 2 million different organizations. So what I want us to get is there's something powerfully good going on the planet. And I want to share something that Paul Hawken wrote. He said, this movement we're talking about, it claims no special powers and arises in small, discreet ways like blades of grass after a rain. The movement grows and spreads in every city and country and involves virtually every tribe, culture, language, and religion, from the Mongolians to the Uzbeks to the Tamils. It is a composite and composition of families in India, students in Australia, farmers in France, landless in Brazil, the Baneras of Honduras, the poor of Durban, villages in Iran, indigenous tribes of Bolivia, and housewives in Japan. Its leaders are farmers, zoologists, shoemakers, and poets. This movement has 3 fundamental and interconnected branches. 1, of social justice issues, 1, environmental activism, and the third is the flight and fight of the indigenous people against corporate domination. What's going on? That's the good news I want us to understand. Because it will take all of us to shift things that are taking place. Because what's going on this planet is planetary. as the glaciers begin to melt and the earth begins to change its wobble on its axis because the disbursement of balance is changing, there's things that are going on. But I'm not going to go to talking about the decimation of rainforests and plastics in the ocean and polar bears. I've done that in the past. But I want to go to a vision of possibility. Rachel Carson, you might remember her. I won't say started it, but she definitely activated the environmental movement in 1962 with her book, Silent Spring, when she took on the pesticide, the DDT. She said, if we could see clearly the wonders and the reality of the universe that is about, we would lose our taste for destruction. That's the mysticism. That is the connection. That is the reality. If we could see the wonder and the beauty of spirit and life, of our interconnectedness, we would lose the taste for the exploitation. We would begin to open up to visions of possibilities and new expressions and ways of doing things. Nature's talking to us. Victor Hugo in 1840, he said that if we could just hear nature crying out, but it's sad that we don't. For man doesn't listen. It's sad that we don't listen to the cry of nature. We just don't listen. And so what does nature do? Well, just like our life. If we don't listen, it gets louder, right? The slap gets louder. It turns into the 2x4 over the head. It's the cliche. And what is nature doing? It is calling to us. Droughts on the West Coast, devastating winters to the Midwest and the East. That's just in the United States. What about the fires that decimated, the rainforests in South America last year? That was whipping through Australia last year. These super storms that are devastating coastlines. The Godzilla typhoon that hit Southeast Asia last year, wiping out coastlines and communities and farms. And those individuals that had the family farms don't have the resources to start over. So what happens is the corporate and those that do have funds step in and take over. Now, there's a lot of economy to be, that is benefited by storms and devastation. But there's also other ways in which we can keep circulation going on this planet. But what happens sometimes, at least for me, is that there's this collective amnesia that kind of slips in. I really don't want to look at this. It's too big. What am I going to do? I'm not 14 anymore like those kids. I've got nothing to risk other than the planet. What we need to do with this amnesia is to get back in touch with nature, to see how wonderful and magnificent it is. I've got friends who say the closest I ever get to nature is my salad at dinner. Many are going through a nature deficit disorder in their life. They're just missing that kind of connection. And it's no wonder that we slip into this amnesia because it is so big, it is so ominous. And then I come back, I wake up, it's Earth Day, I get excited. San Diego's going off in Balboa Park. We got EcoFest coming. We got the films here at Seaside. The women are doing Earth Day a Friday night. If you want to go, drum and be around the fire circle, it's available to you for that. But I'll tell you what, we've got to stay awake. We have got to stay conscious because there is a large movement afoot that is heavily funded by the big corporations called the Heartland Institute that is paid significantly to debunk that there's global change going on, that climate change is going on, that they are called the counterculture to climate change. And they will tell you thousands and thousands of scientists around the globe are lying to us, that it's all a hoax. And 97% of the climate scientists will say the statistics that this institute is putting out are just not, documentable. But there's this battle that is going on, and as soon as we slip into that amnesia and we begin to lose our guard and don't come from that rising emergence, the mystical, the greater possibility of the vision that we are Earth guardians, what happens is we begin to lose the stronghold or the battle that is going on. And there is a battle going on. Don't get it wrong. There is a war between the economical systems and the planetary systems, and the economical system is winning at the present time the particular battle. And for the planetary system to emerge, we have to let go of the consuming of the resources that are on the planet. But for the economical system to emerge, we have to continue to expand. And the two just don't balance out at the present level of opportunity. As we begin to recognize, what is it else that I can do here? What can I bring to this scenario? What is it that I can begin to practice and to understand here? What is it that I need to know? How can I become a sacred activist, if you would? How can I be the place where God touches down in the midst of what's happening in this world? What is it that I need to do? Red Cloud, a Lakota shaman, medicine man, educator, he said, sometimes small steps are fine into the future. And other times you got to run like a buffalo. Well, this is one of those times that we need to run like a buffalo. Because I'll tell you what, the resources upon the planet are being consumed at an exorbitant rate. And what happens when there is a voracious appetite for the resources of the planet and they start to shrink? What happens is that it becomes more vicious to go and get those resources. And all of a sudden, men with guns are defending not necessarily human rights, though that's what we're told, but defending the assets of those resources that are being exploited and becoming fewer and fewer and less upon the planet. I think it's time to see in a new kind of way. What kind of legacy am I going to leave the grandchildren of this world? Well, I believe that there's a new way to see how things can happen, the way things can be done. But you've got to look. See, that is that mountaintop view, that observing perspective. I got to be willing to look, but I got to tell you, I got a lot of people that say they just avoid the news, as if avoidance is a really mature approach. Yeah. Because if you avoid, who's going to respond to what's going on in the environment? Who's going to respond to war crimes? Who is going to respond to the violations of the Constitution? You see, we're the ones. We are the ones that get to say, you know what? If things don't change, then it's going to move in the direction that the scientists are telling us. The images and the pictures that we have seen in the sci-fi movies. If we do nothing, but it's time for us to run like a buffalo. Otherwise, our grandchildren are going to be spending, they say, a great majority of their time either escaping from the storms or recovering from them. There's something going on in our environment. The CO2 emissions is exorbitant. The increase in the weather, we had the great climate conference, in 2002 at Rio de Janeiro and Copenhagen in 2009 where, all these things were said, nothing really happened. We're trusting that the last one that took place is that in France, that they will keep it below the 2 centigrade increase in the heat, because after that, supposedly, it's not a good scenario. We keep it below the 350 in the ozone layer that we have probably surpassed already. There are things that need to be done immediately, and we are capable of responding in an immediately kind of way. But we've got to believe it, because what we are is an expression of our belief, of our heart, of our soul, of our spirit. That's what we are. We've been operating in this material world, but we are shifting our era from a material realm of form to one that is more energy. We're recognizing that this body is just not density and matter, but rather it's made up of atoms. Atoms are mostly space and energy. And what we are is in sync with this vibration. And so we can say, I'm not going to watch the news because it is so negative. I don't want that in my subjective. But I'll tell you what, you're this electromagnetic field that is getting bombarded with all news that is going through the field of waves that fill this room. And if you don't believe in that kind of stuff, then what about consciousness? What is permeating the collective consciousness of the fear and the images that are bombarding us? You cannot help but to feel it. And what I want us to recognize is that we're moving into a new age, an energy age, the solar age that is out picturing in the technology, in the internet, in the computer, in the cell phones. But as wonderful that is, who you are, and your soul's expression is so much more magnificent, and that is what is being called for a time such as this to come forth and to express itself in ways that are needed upon our planet. You are the one that is going to make the difference. There's an old Indian story of a beggar who's out in the streets begging, and out in the dusty roads, and one day he sees the carriage of the emperor, the king, coming down the road, and he gets all excited. He said, "Here it is. I'm going to receive the gifts from the richest guy around. How blessed am I?" He's feeling as if he just hit the lottery. How exciting can this be? And all of a sudden the carriage drives up. The king sets his head out the window and says, "So what are you going to give me?" That was his thought exactly. It's like, you're kidding me. Like, you got everything. What can I give a guy who's got everything and I got nothing? So grudgingly digs into his little bag, and a couple corn kernels he chews on through the course of the day if he's hungry. He pulls out a corn kernel and gives it to the king, and the king drives off, and he just couldn't believe it. And when he goes home that night and he empties his little bag and the kernels of corn and he'll go out on the floor, he notices one of them turned to gold. And it was in that moment he broke into tears, wishing he would have given it all. But you see, the challenge is we've got this childlike fantasy that there's going to be this intervention. We've just won the lottery and everything's going to disappear instantly and it's all going to be good now. We're the ones, just like those kids were singing. Just like Gandhi said, you've got to be the change. We're the ones who've got to start to become conscious of our consumerism, of the words we talk about, of our actions that are making a difference in this world that we walk in and on. This concrete that is covering this beautiful Mother Earth is just crying to be remembered for the essence and the life force that it is. And I hear people blatantly say, well, if it's alive and we're like parasites, it gets to the level of just flip us off like dogs and fleas and things. Maybe. But you know what? Do you know how horrific 7 billion crying souls of agony who have just been forcefully removed would be for the psyche to be swimming in and being in? A horrendous kind of thought. So that kind of flippant attitude that, oh yeah, something will just come along, and forget that I need to do something now. If I'm going to leave a legacy for my grandchildren, we haven't figured it out, but by God we will. And that is the thing. By God, by that Spirit, by that connection. Ernest Holmes, the founder of religious science, he says that Spirit can do for us only what it can do through us. See, that's today. It's about charging you to recognize Spirit wants to move through you to make a difference. Go Google and find out how you can get rid of the light bulbs or do less with fuel or fill your tires, all those things I've said in the past. There are so many ways in which you can do, but you have got to be willing to do that. Because I'll tell you what, there are forces upon this planet that are making it difficult. There is like religion should be bringing us together. But the fanatical fundamentalists in their religion who should be uniting are using their mystical illiteracy to separate the people. And rather than using religion to bring us together as one human family, it is creating a schism through terrorism and war that is splitting people apart. There is the media, the major media outlets who deliver just half-baked news spun to a particular perspective, filled with 24 hours of inane comedy, the pornography, the violence, the advertisements. There's just this incessant psychic rape that we have just become used to. The bombardment upon our consciousness. And if somehow we are able to survive that and not turn on the network, what our society does is it honors our hectic lifestyle, just immortalizing and celebrating the ADD kind of behavior, just saying, isn't that magnificent and wonderful that you can do so much, but you're exhausted and you don't have that time to go connect with nature, which is the very thing one needs to do to begin to be in wonder and awe of the reality of the absolute universe in which we live and move and have our being in. To recognize that presence of God, it takes time to meditate and to connect and to feel the presence in our heart and soul. Once again, things are happening on the plus side. This renaissance of mysticism I alluded to. The nonviolent kind of approach to living. The emergence or reemergence of the divine feminine that is about the caring, the nurturing, the harmony, the balance. But yet it is not a pushover. Kali, the goddess in the Hindu of creation who birthed the kids, then we'll wipe them out if they get out of line. It is creation and destruction. It is showing up the divine feminine in medicine. It is now, a beautiful, holistic, integrated kind of medicine that is an option for us. In the corporate world, it is going from competition, domination, and to one of collaboration, cooperation, creativity. In life, it is bringing an awareness to the sacred rights of animals, that the rights of women, and the feminist movement, the progress within the gay movement and the acceptance. There is a shift that's taking place in the psychological realms where it's the Jungian psychology, a willingness to explore the shadows and the Rogers and the client-centered therapy. It is showing up in the sciences of ecology, of neurobiology, of physics, the quantum physics. This feminine energy is rising because the patriarchal dominance of exploitation is no longer working, but it is emerging of the two that make the difference. It's not it is allowing the male to be the noble protector, but it's the balance of the feminine that allows it to be on the right track. See, what's going on? There's good going on, and we've never seen the birth of a planet before, of a planetary civilization before, I'll put it that way. There's a crisis going on. But the crisis is an invocation to your sacred activism. The crisis is an opportunity for you to wake up from that amnesia and recognize that you're being called for times such as this to make a difference. Jane Goodall says, everyone makes a difference. The question is, what kind of difference do you want to make? When we decided to get away from government-funded space exploration, privatize the space exploration, they put out a prize for the first person who could, send a spaceship out into space, bring it back safely, and then send it back again and repeat it. And Burt Rutan out of Mojave did a great job with that, did that, and won that prize. Well, one of the prize monies that is being put out by Richard Branson right now from his Earth Challenge, I think it's called. Great financial prize for anyone, and he's cast the call for anyone who can create the machine that will pull the CO2 out of the atmosphere. See, CO2 is accumulative. It doesn't go away for 100 or 200 years. The temperature is what it is right now, but that accumulative effect we haven't even begun to realize. There needs to be something new that is done. And there was a vision that says, let's just figure out how to suck it out of the air. Well, a few hundred or a few thousand scientists may not be able to figure it, but all of a sudden when you put it out to the globe and there's the crowdsourcing and funding with ideas, all of a sudden you now have 7 billion people working on a divine idea that is birthing itself for a time such as this, because humanity has already made the quantum leap for its survival. And it's not going to be any different now. There are great individuals that have chosen to make a difference. Just this month, we saw Elon Musk come out with his new electric car, the Tesla. In the first week, they sold 270,000 electric cars. And someone came through the line this morning, pulled out their iPhone and said, you know what? It's now up to almost 400,000 electric cars, where the first one won't even be delivered until the fall of 2017 next year. Most of those people aren't going to see their car until 2018, and they all laid down $1,000 to get on the list. They say this will change everything in the automotive industry. These are the things that are going on right now. We have to focus on that, but we also have to focus on what it is ours to do. What is it that I can do? And what I believe right now is that it's never too late. You got that one? Because a lot of the fanatical environmentalists are telling us it's too late. I believe it is never too late. And so when my son Trevor's child takes hold of my hand and looks up to me and says, Grandpa, what did you do to save the earth? I'll be able to say, I stood courageously among the people and shared ideas and possibilities about our planet Earth for our grandchildren that may not be popular or mainstream, but I was courageous enough to say, it's never too late to make a difference, which we're all here to do. God bless you on this Earth Day.
Such a long way home from where to this place. You cry for mercy and you long for grace. Feel the love, feel the light. Won't you come in from the cold? 'Cause all are welcome here. Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home. 'Cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome here. Here.
All Are Welcome Here, from the album Path of Light, was co-written by Peggy Lebo and Reverend Christian Sorensen. It's available at www.peggylebo.com.